In 1821, deep in the Appalachian ridges where parishes clung to mountainsides and kept their accounts in ink that outlived their stone churches, a census ledger opened and faltered. Line 47 records a household, 7 bodies. Ages, 43, 39, 18, 16, 12, 9, 5. Occupation, agriculture. Parish, St. Elias Hollow. All ordinary, except the space where names should have anchored them. The ledger records them only as family, present. No surname, no signature. On the paper beneath the column reserved for surnames, the clerk drew a faint horizontal stroke, as if to begin a letter, and then stopped. The line sinks into the pulp, pressure without ink. It is not an accident. It is hesitation pressed into paper. The paradox is simple and impossible at once. A family counted but not named. The ledger insists 7 souls, bedded and fed, taxed to the parish tithe. The page disagrees by refusing the ritual of naming. In Appalachia, surnames were survival. They tied you to land grants, to kinship lines, to reputation. A family without a name is not simply anonymous, it is impossible. Yet the page insists. The register holds the numbers. The line beneath remembers refusal. The hand that made this entry is steady elsewhere in the book. Pages before and after carry surnames with confidence. Hargis, McAllister, Boone, Ralston. Each name begins with a heavy downstroke, ends with a confident loop. Only here, at line 47, the pen pauses, presses, and lifts. The loop never arrives. Instead, a dent, what archivists call a ghost stroke, remains. A name that wanted to be written but was not. The clerk's initials, JC, appear in the right margin. Compare his hand elsewhere. The same initials, the same tidy tail. But here, beside the nameless family, his initials close too tightly. A small seal where normally he leaves air. His hand betrays him. He knew. There is a second artifact, later, but connected. A cabinet photograph found in the curate's papers, labeled Only Hollow Family 1821. The card is dated 1863, 4 decades after the ledger entry. And yet the image does not fog, does not yellow, does not silver at the edges like its contemporaries. Under ultraviolet light, the control print beside it fades as expected. The Hollow family photograph darkens, then returns. The technician's note reads, "Image unchanged." The ledger denies their surname. The photograph denies time. In 1821 Appalachia, a parish ledger recorded 7 bodies, no names. The census held their numbers. The page refused their kinship. The dent in the column says not written. The photograph says not aged. Which record is truer, the line or the pressure? Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. The parish froze a family by refusing to write them. Appalachia was a ledger landscape. Families were counted as tithes, bodies as acreage. Surnames determined not only who inherited land, but who was permitted to worship, who could testify, who could marry. To be without a surname was to be without gravity. You floated, suspended, useful to the system only as count, never as kin. And yet, on folio 47, the family persists. Counted, but unnamed. Their existence corrodes the promise of order. The census page shows what is not there. No surname, no signature, no land parcel number, no occupation specifics beyond agriculture, no mark from kin or curate to confirm their belonging. The ledger pretends completion. The page remembers absence. In 1821 Appalachia, the census counted 7 souls. The ledger called them family. The paper refused to say which. Like and subscribe if you are ready to open the archive. And if you are listening right now, tell me your country and the time. This isn't a ghost story, not yet. This is a parish ledger, a pressure dent, and a family with no last name. We fix the room before we fix the people. Because rooms lie less than men, and objects hold longer than memories. The parish office in 1821 is small, almost mean. A single window looks out over a slope where pines crowd the ridge. The glass is streaked, and the daylight it lets in is weak, filtered by smoke from a hearth that has not drawn clean in years. The air inside is layered, damp wool, iron pins, and the glue-sweet odor of paper that has lived too long in a room with bodies. At the center stands a desk of oak, its edge beveled smooth by wrists that leaned there every day. In the groove where wrists rested, the wood has darkened to the color of oil. On the desk itself, a parish census ledger, open to folio 47. Beside it, 2 diet rosters for tithe distribution, a folded letter from the curate, and a small handkerchief set down as though it were a tool. An inkstand sits to the left. Glass well, brass collar, black ring where a cap once lived too long. To the right, a tally counter carved of wood, its wheel chipped, clicking unevenly each time it rolls through the digit 2. The ledger is a thick, cloth-backed book with leather corners rubbed raw. Its pages sag at the edges, bowed by years of use, the fibers swollen with oils drawn from hands that turned them. When you lift the cover, the hinges sigh the way paper sighs when it has absorbed both damp and heat. The first flyleaf bears the parish stamp in round black letters, St. Elias Hollow, Census, 1821. On the wall above the desk hangs a calendar pinned to March, though the entry we read is dated April. The page should have turned, it has not. The shadow of a missing key hook darkens the plaster. Nails hold a folded parish atlas, its corners dog-eared, the fold running straight through the map where the county line should divide. The fold repeats names across the crease, the same letters appearing twice. A trick of print or of refusal. The room believes in lines. Lines of ink, lines of tally, lines of lineage. On folio 47 the line falters, and the room seems to know it. We look at the entry itself, 7 counted. Age is written. Occupation, agriculture, surname column left blank. In its place, a horizontal dent where the clerk pressed and lifted. Pressure without pen. Ghost stroke. A name begun and abandoned. Everything else on the desk sits as it should. The blotter turned to a clean corner. The pen nib laid aside with dried black in the joint. The scale against the far wall balanced, pans at rest. But beside the ledger lies a small slip of paper in a different hand, the curate's, with a single line. Verify kinship. It is not signed. It is not dated. It is only a request that never made it back into the ledger. The ledger page smells of starch and glue when warmed by lamplight. That smell mixes with the iron tang rising from the brass pin box in the drawer below. The pins hold folded atlases, puncturing names to keep them aligned. One pinhole in particular shows a halo not of green brass but of red-brown, as though blood bled through where no blood should be. On the shelf beside the desk rests the atlas of parish families. The atlas is a tree, names branching from names, kinship ordered into tidy diagrams. But one page has been folded, and the fold returns each time you try to flatten it. Across that crease, names repeat. The same Christian names on both sides, surnames absent, erased, or never written. A family that doubles back into itself and refuses to leave the page clean. Voices are absent here. No parent signing with an X, no curate witnessing kinship. Only silence, which is its own testimony. The atmosphere presses as much as the ink does. A draft runs through the room, catching the edge of the atlas fold, lifting it, letting it fall again. A habit the page has learned. The fold repeats. The names return. We listen for sounds that do not belong to people. The faint click of the tally counter's chipped tooth when someone spins it idly. The sigh of paper contracting as it cools. The muted thump of a pin dropped in its box. Each sound belongs to record-keeping, not to kinship. What is missing is louder still. There is no land parcel number beside the family. No parish tithe assigned. No note of burial, baptism, or kinship witness. The line holds only numbers and refusal. This is how we set the scene. A small parish office. A desk with its groove. A ledger with its dent. A calendar stuck on March. An atlas that folds names into themselves until they repeat. A slip that whispers, verify kinship. and then vanishes into silence. The family without a surname exists here only as a count. 7 bodies, 1 household, no name. The desk is satisfied with its arithmetic. The page is not. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. The ledger prefers holding. The paper prefers remembering. The room remains. The groove remains. The fold remains. And inside the ledger's dent, a name that wanted to be written but was not. The official version lives on paper, and we begin by reading it as the clerk would have read it to himself before closing the book for the day. Folio 47, line 47. Household 7, male 43, female 39, children 18, 16, 12, 9, 5. Occupation, agriculture. Parish, St. Elias Hollow. Each line clipped, efficient, the vocabulary of census work. What is expected is present. What is essential is absent. Where the column for surnames opens its mouth, there is only silence. The clerk filled every space except the one that mattered. No surname, no kinship, no lineage. A family reduced to a number. 7 bodies, 7 lines, but nothing to tie them to the soil they worked or the graves that waited for them. A family counted but not named. On first glance it appears clean. The ink is steady, the hand practiced, the loop of every letter consistent with other entries. But when the lamplight bends across the page at 15 degrees, the ledger betrays itself. Beneath the column where a name should begin, a faint horizontal dent surfaces. It is pressure without ink, the ghost of a stroke that never became a letter. The clerk pressed, hesitated, lifted his pen. The page remembers what the ink refuses. Archivists call it a ghost stroke. We call it hesitation made permanent. Compare the surrounding lines. On line 46, the McAllisters are written confidently. The surname begins with a strong M, the loop at the end wide and open. On line 48, the Boones take their place, the clerk's pen pressing heavily at the tail of the N, a flourish of habit. But line 47 begins with nothing more than a dent, a line pressed into pulp that never received ink, a hesitation among confidence. The hand that signed other names without pause faltered here. The initials J.C. stand at the right margin, the clerk's mark of authentication. Elsewhere in the ledger, those initials always remain slightly open, the loop incomplete. Here, next to the unnamed family, the initials close tight, the loop sealed. As though he knew this line was unfinished and tried to seal it shut with his own mark. But the paper refuses to seal. It continues to remember. The remark column holds nothing but a small dash. Other families carry notes: widowed, indigent, invalid. But the Hollow family line remains mute. No context, no excuse, only the dash, as though the clerk meant to return to it and never did. Erasure is never neutral. It is always chosen. The ink itself tells another story. Under raking light, the pigment feathers at the edge of certain strokes, consistent with iron gall ink that has aged predictably. But in the surname column where the ghost stroke hides, the paper fibers are compressed differently. They glint, they shine as if someone pressed hard enough to crush the fibers, but not hard enough to write. Pressure carries its own testimony. It testifies to indecision, to the beginning of a name abandoned before it could live. The surrounding arithmetic confirms the anomaly. Household numbers reconcile perfectly. 7 in this family, 7 rations marked in the tithe book, 7 souls counted toward the parish totals. Arithmetic satisfied, narrative denied. It is possible to feed without naming, to tax without kinship, to bury without lineage. Systems thrive on counts. They are suspicious of names. The atmosphere of the line grows heavier the longer you read it. You sense the negative space more than the ink. A name-shaped void that unsettles the ledger's confidence. You see it in the way the ink line of the numeral 7 is pressed deeper than usual, as if the clerk compensated for absence by doubling down on numbers. You see it in the way the loop of the 9 at the child S age closes too tightly, almost sealing itself like a secret. Small betrayals of habit that become visible when set beside uniformity. And then there is the erasure. Near the margin, Faint and almost gone, someone once wrote a word and then rubbed it away. Under dust, under lampblack, the word half returns. Verify. A small instruction, erased with more diligence than time normally allows. Paper never forgets completely. The erased word hovers like a voice that wanted to intervene and then thought better of it. We imagine the intake moment, but not as melodrama, only as procedure. The clerk sits at his desk. The family stands waiting to be recorded into the parish book. He writes their numbers. He writes their ages. He writes their occupation. Then he pauses at the surname. The pen presses. It does not move. He lifts it. He makes a small line that presses but does not write. Then he leaves the space blank. He finishes the rest of the form. He signs his initials tightly. He closes the book. What does the system do with absence? It ignores it. 7 bodies become 7 lines without kinship. 7 rations are allocated, 7 tithes collected, and the parish accounts balance. Arithmetic hides anomaly, but paper resists closure. The ghost stroke remains. The erased word hovers. The ink betrays hesitation. The absence is not silent. It is loud in its refusal. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. This number holds. This family is paid for, recorded, accounted, but never named. The implications spill outward. A family without surname cannot own land, cannot inherit, cannot testify. They exist only as mouths to feed, souls to tally, bodies to bury. The parish ledger transforms them into countable units and nothing more. It is easier to deny kinship than to deny arithmetic. The first contradiction is already alive. A family present in number, absent in name. Officially recorded, unofficially erased. A line that performs arithmetic perfectly while disobeying the ritual of naming. We call this the first record because it establishes the system's survival tactic. Invent nothing, explain nothing, simply count. Counting disguises erasure as order. This is what remains on folio 47. A ledger entry clean on the surface, fractured beneath the light. A ghost stroke that pressed but did not write. A remark erased and never returned. A clerk's loop closed tighter than habit. 7 counted, none named. The ledger is satisfied. The page is not. The ledger is never alone. Every tidy line keeps a companion somewhere. A slip, a margin, a note that wasn't meant to live as long as the book and somehow did. The parish office yields its companion when we slide the atlas aside and feel for paper that shouldn't be there. It's onion skin thin, folded once, the fold pressed so hard it's learned a memory. The hand is not the clerk's. It's tighter, smaller. A penman who crowds words until they blur. The upper corner bears a habit the clerk never had. A diagonal notch cut with a knife to mark importance. The ink is darker than the ledger's, fresher when it was laid down, an iron gall that has only just begun to brown. At the top, in Latin the ledger never uses, 3 words, familia sine nomine, family without a name. The curate wrote it. He does not sign his full name. He writes only a cross before his initial and a long tail that runs under the date. April, in the year of our Lord 1821. He titles it not census, but verification of kinship, household 47. The word verification promises certainty. The page offers something else. He begins in the old way. Male, 43, claims the Christian name of E. Female, 39, claims M. He lists the children by age only, the way the ledger did. But where the ledger left the surname blank and moved on, the curate tries to draw the lines the ledger refused. E is brother's son to M's mother, he writes, then scratches something out, a nest of lines that hides a word he must have regretted. He begins again. Kindred within 2 degrees, dispensation not sought. He underlines nothing, but he presses hard on not, carving the letter into the skin of the paper so deep that the reverse shows a raised bruise. He doesn't name them. He names the distance between them. Kinship without names. The ledger counted bodies and refused a surname. The curate refuses names and counts kin. He writes one instruction in the margin, pencil over ink, softer and more human. Do not draw the lines. Idiom is the kind of phrase you expect to see on a map you don't trust, not in the record of a family that needs a parish to say what they are. The instruction isn't theology. It isn't law. It's fear translated into pencil. Do not draw the lines that would make this kinship visible. Do not draw the lines that would require an answer. Do not draw the lines that would assign a surname the parish cannot bear to carry. We read his hand the way we read the clerk's. Where the clerk ends light, the curate ends heavy. Where the clerk loops open, the curate loops shut. He carries a quirk. He crosses his T late. The crossbar arrives as an afterthought a word or two later, a thin slash laid over earlier stems, an amendment that pretends it was always there. On this sheet, the cross for not arrives 3 words after the T should have been crossed. The habit isn't style, it's a symptom. He writes conclusions later than he writes facts. A stain darkens the lower edge of the sheet, a ring of tallow from a candle set too close. The clerk never lets his book touch flame. The curate works in rooms that allow heat to touch paper. The tallow ring overlaps a phrase that makes our throat tighten. They present as one household, he writes, and speak as one. Then, in smaller letters so small they climb the line above them, names withheld. The phrase isn't passive voice. It's a decision. Withheld from whom? From the curate? From the ledger? From the town that already knows who they are and wants the book not to. The curate does something no one else has done. He quotes a voice. He puts it in marks that look like claws. We are kin. He doesn't say who spoke. He doesn't say whether the speaker's mouth trembled or whether the words came as habit. He writes the sound and retracts the name. At the bottom of the sheet, lower right, a small stamp appears where stamps don't belong in this parish. It's not the royal seal, not a tax mark. It's a parish tool the clerk reserves for receipts. Received. Here it bears a date that does not agree with the ledger's rhythm. The ledger line for household 47 carries the day of entry as the 15th. The stamp here is the 13th. The sheet says the curate took this note before the family existed officially on the page. The words arrive before the count. An order reversed. The parish thought about refusal first and arithmetic second. We hold the sheet up to the light and the watermark shows, a wheel of spokes, the papermaker's mark, and the year 1819. The age is right, the fiber is right, the habit is right, the disobedience is the only wrong thing. He writes the lines of kinship and then instructs us not to draw them. He confirms the intimacy the ledger tried to hide and then forbids the diagram that would make it visible. We set his slip beside the ledger and watch the disagreement confirm the truth. The ledger says, family, present, and stops at count. The curate says, kindred within 2 degrees, and stops at naming. Each document refuses the half the other would provide. Together, they show a full refusal. The parish knows exactly what it is looking at and chooses a language that will keep it off the books. We inventory his negative space as carefully as we counted the ledgers. The slip carries no surname, no land parcel, no witness signature beyond his initial. There's no route note to the vestry, no instruction to baptize or to separate. There is the pencil instruction instead. Do not draw the lines. The erasure law of small offices applies here too. He tries once to write illicit, then knifes through it, the blade leaving a silvered scab where light catches torn fibers. He does not want the sheet to carry the word the parish carries in its mouth. He wants the record to learn restraint, even if the room can't. The curate's slip carries one more betrayal of routine. He quotes scripture the ledger would never quote. Not chapter and verse. He's not that bold. Just a phrase in the wide margin left for totals. Do not write the genealogy. He doesn't attribute it. He doesn't need to. The county is full of men who will supply their own scripture for whatever the parish asks of them. The phrase is less a citation than a shield. If anyone asks why a family enters nameless, the slip can be held up and the ink can say, because the book, or at least a book, told us so. We watch his hand falter and then recover. He writes the Christian names as initials only. He writes brother's son, then scratches and writes kin. He writes dispensation not sought, and his pen digs into the paper like a nail. He instructs no one to fix anything because fixing would require drawing the lines, and drawing the lines would require a surname, and a surname would require the parish to own what the atlas would show. He resolves the problem by inventing a rule. The parish will not draw the lines. The parish will not name what it knows. The ledger will count. The curate will confirm the count and smother the kinship inside it. We can almost see the scene that made this paper. The family stands. The curate sits. He tries the names in his mouth and finds his mouth unwilling. He writes initials, because initials keep the shape of names without the weight. He rephrases, because a first phrasing makes him complicit, and a second phrasing makes him administrative. He presses hard on not, because negation always arrives with more pressure than admission. He flips the stamp and takes the date from a moment the ledger hasn't lived yet, because in his head the refusal must precede the counting. There's another witness we didn't expect, faint and human. A second pencil, lighter than the curate's, writes along the bottom edge in letters that lean right. The angle and the softness say female hand. We know her. We saw her initial earlier. The nurse, the parish sister, the one who wrote verify kinship on a slip, the clerk ignored. She writes one sentence that resists every other sentence on the page. I recognize them. She does not say how, and she does not say from where, and she does not sign. Recognition is a private act. The parish requires public acts. We lay the three voices together. The ledger that counts and refuses surnames, the curate who verifies and forbids drawings, and the sister who risks a line of recognition she knows will go nowhere. In courts, this would be contradiction. In archives, this is confirmation. The more the documents dodge each other, the more the shape in the middle refuses to disappear. We listen to the refrain mutate under our breath as the paper stacks itself. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. And now a third clause we did not want. Lines that reveal get forbidden. We could stop here and call it a bureaucratic error. The curate did not have the right form. The ledger did not have the right word. But errors do not learn phrases like, do not draw the lines. Errors do not invent familia, sine, nomine and stamp dates out of order. Errors do not cut a notch in the corner of a slip to be sure they can find it again when the vestry asks for reassurance that nothing new will be done. We end the reading the way we began it, by holding the page under light until the paper tells the truth the ink is trying to avoid. The curate's sheet sounds official. It is a refusal set to writing. It is also a confession that the parish knew, that the parish chose, that the parish trained its language to protect itself. The ledger is satisfied by the count. The curate is satisfied by the caution. The page, pressed and folded and crossed late, is not satisfied at all. Two records stand together now, confirming an anomaly by disagreeing about how to hide it. One counts and withholds the surname. One names the distance and withholds the name. Between them lives a family that the parish could not bear to draw. The instruction remains in the margin where a map might have been. Do not draw the lines. A ledger may falter, a curate may refuse, but until a test is staged, an anomaly can be called imagination. The parish did not use laboratories, but it had its instruments, pins, paper, folds, and light. We treat them as we would any apparatus. We place the atlas on the table, we choose our control, and we watch procedure reveal what testimony cannot. The Atlas of Families for St. Elias Hollow is a heavy thing. Cloth cover, faded green, corners bound with leather, the edges of pages curling. It is meant to comfort donors with the appearance of order. Lines drawn from fathers to sons, from mothers to daughters, all converging on parcels of land and marriages ratified by Scripture. Families become diagrams. Kinship becomes geometry. The parish survives by drawing straight lines. Except here. One fold cuts across the page where the family of line 47 should live. Each time the page is opened, the fold snaps back. Each time we try to smooth it, the crease returns. It is as if the paper has chosen its own hinge and refuses correction. The fold repeats names across itself, Christian names, the same 2 or 3 written again and again. The surname column is empty, and across the crease the names mirror each other, the same initials appearing twice, once on each side of the divide. We perform a simple procedure. It does not require reagents or electricity. It requires only pins. The parish used brass map pins to fix its family atlas, to hold pages open for inspection during vestry sessions. We take the pins that already puncture this fold and examine them. Control. On another page, where the McAllisters appear, the pinholes are ordinary. Brass leaves a pale green halo in the fibers, copper oxide bleeding gently into rag pulp. Expected, predictable. The kind of chemistry parish record keepers trust, because it is quiet. Subject. At the hollow fold, the pinholes are wrong. Around the punctures, the halos are not green but brown-red. The stain spreads irregular, as though liquid once welled up and dried in a shape brass cannot explain. Under magnification, the parish owns a brass microscope used for insects and seeds. The fibers are darker at the rim, as though saturated with something heavier than water. A technician's note, small and clinical, will later describe it in 3 words. Pins carry iron. Brass should not yield iron. Oxidation should not mimic blood. But the halo persists, red-brown, darker at the edges where pressure lingered. We stage the test again because boredom is protection. 1 pin is removed and pressed into clean paper. The impression is neat, greenish, exactly as brass should behave. We set it aside, return to the hollow fold, and find again the red-brown halo, iron where there should be copper. Control reassures, subject resists. Procedure requires a second check. We perform a fold memory test. Warm light from the gas jet is directed onto the page for 5 minutes. Control folds flatten with effort and remain so. The hollow fold does not. Even under weight, even under warmth, the crease rebounds. The names written across it double again, visible on both sides of the fold, as if the paper insists on returning to the refusal. The parish sister who once wrote, "I recognize them," must have noticed this habit. The page remembers kinship even when the parish would not. We try a third test, borrowed from a naturalist's handbook, lampblack dusting. A shallow breath scatters carbon powder across the surface. In control areas, the powder slides evenly, clinging to ink strokes. At the hollow fold, the dust collects along indentations where lines were pressed and never inked. The ghost of a surname emerges, only partial, only initial strokes. A beginning letter, possibly H, possibly N, pressed and abandoned, the rest withheld. The powder makes visible what the clerk's hesitation concealed. The results are written without adornment. Control halo, green. Subject halo, red-brown. Control fold, flatten. Subject fold, returns. Control stroke, complete. Subject stroke, abandoned. The sentences are not poetry. They are refusal to conclude, which is its own form of honesty. The curate's margin warned us, do not draw the lines. The fold shows us why. Drawn fully, the names collapse into themselves. The kinship tree loops, generation folding into generation, names repeating across the crease until the geometry ceases to persuade. The parish survived by pretending the fold was error, not pattern. But the paper remembers. We imagine the vestry scene. Men seated with ledgers open, pins fixing pages, donors glancing at diagrams meant to reassure them that parish families grow in neat branches. Someone notices the crease. Someone sees the repetition. A pin is pushed deeper to hold the page still. The page resists. Later, when the atlas is opened again, the pinholes bleed red-brown, where brass should leave green. The fibers testify in color. We must not confuse ourselves with superstition. It is not blood. It is iron. Protein traces, perhaps. A contamination that resists explanation. But contamination tells us more than erasure does. It tells us where the system pressed hardest to hold its story in place. The refrain mutates again as we write the results. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. Lines that reveal get forbidden. And now, folds that return get pinned. We list what is not present in the report. There is no conclusion about cause, No accusation, no direction for action. The technician refuses words like illicit or inbreeding. He writes only what the paper did when pressed, when warmed, when dusted. He notes that the control behaved. He notes that the subject did not. He leaves it at that. This is not a ghost story. It is a fold that returns. It is a pinhole that bleeds iron. It is a clerk's hesitation made visible in powder. The parish invented language to forbid drawing the lines. The paper drew them anyway. We close the atlas, but the crease remembers. We return the pins, but the halos remain. The ledger was satisfied. The page was not. The fold is not. One refusal can be dismissed as error. A second can be excused as weather, illness, haste. But when refusal repeats across hands and across years, it stops being a mistake and becomes a method. The Hollow family's nameless line is not solitary. The parish taught itself how to hide a lineage by rehearsing the same gesture over and over until it felt like policy. We begin in the baptism register, 2 winters before the census. The curate's tidy Latin gives way to English when he wants the page to cooperate. Infant, male, he writes. Born to M. A blank after 2. Then in smaller letters, leaning uphill as if trying to climb out of the line. Surname omitted by request. There is no rubric for such a request. The rubric demands a surname. The margin receives a workaround. The date is inked. The godparent spaces are filled with initials only. The water was real. The name was not allowed to be. The marriage banns should offer certainty. Their job is to shout names aloud 3 Sundays in a row. The parish book shows the form printed and ready. I publish the banns of marriage between. And then, in 2 places where surnames go. And the curate writes a sentence in a careful hand. Publication of banns waived this once, whether. Weather cannot waive names, but weather can be made to do bureaucratic work if you need it to. In the burial register, a child is lowered into earth behind the church. The sexton's hand is rough, but the lines are clear. Child of M. No father, no surname. The fee is recorded precisely. 1 shilling, 6 pence. Death is counted. Kinship is not. Walk to the schoolhouse roster. Spring after the census. The schoolmaster writes names on a slate before copying to paper on Saturdays. He is proud of his penmanship. He writes the children's ages and their letters learned. Beside one entry, the surname column carries a long dash. He annotates with a rule he invented for himself. Alias common. It is a way to say they answer to several names when asked, without deciding which should be written. The row totals at the bottom add correctly. The arithmetic is comfort. The line is not. The pew rent ledger in the vestry chest contains another echo. Pew 9, south aisle. Rent paid, 7 sittings. The receipt stub is torn. The name field blank. The steward's pencil, faint and ashamed of itself, has left 2 words in the corner. Family consolidated. A strategy more than a description. Crowd a group into 1 pew. Charge once. Write nothing. Pages with food tell on themselves. In the tithe distribution, loaves outnumber households on 3 separate weeks by 1. The list of recipients is as careful as bread can be careful, each family named, each line balanced against a count of loaves delivered. On the weeks when the hollow household lines up, the column household never shows their name, but the column loaves insists on 13, where 12 households are recorded. The matron does not circle. She writes only cleared in red, even as the surplus repeats. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. The parish learned to hold. The militia roll is a crude thing, inked by a man who distrusted vowels. It lists able-bodied men for muster. At the bottom, in a darker ink, someone has inserted E, just the initial, no surname, with a notation. Appears, not assigned. The word appears does more work than it should. It recognizes presence while declining responsibility. The roll tallies the total with and without him. The vestry keeps the higher number for the report. On the land plat map, the parish lines are clean and confident. Parcels are labeled with surnames like flags. At one bend in the creek, a rectangle shows only held by tenancy. The atlas fold we opened earlier runs straight through it. On the reverse of the sheet, in grease pencil that never dries properly, someone has written, "Not for parish map." The instruction repeats the curate's earlier one, "Do not draw the lines," translated into cartography. Even the donor circular carries the echo dressed in politeness. "We are blessed with Christian families of good repute, whose names are well known among us," it says. And then, in the appendix no one reads except auditors, "Household consolidated for discretion." Donors do not ask what discretion requires. They like the word. It sounds like virtue. In accounts it functions as erasure with a halo. County paper, the kind that arrives from the courthouse with a deputy's boot print on it, argues with the parish by using the same trick. In the jury list, a man is listed as Elias of the Hollow, and then struck through. A clerk's note, "Surname not proven." The law copies the parish's habit of refusing names when names would bind. That phrase from the curate's slip, "familia sine nomine," keeps appearing where Latin doesn't belong. In the schoolhouse margin, in the militia roll, in a catechism book where someone doodled family lines and then shaded over the joints with charcoal as if to smudge kinship back into anonymity. The language migrates. It teaches other hands how to disobey visibly while obeying the letter of the form. Echo is not just words. Echo is gesture. We notice the ghost stroke, that pressed not written line, on other pages now that we know how to look. In the baptism register, beneath M, a faint start of an H. In the pew ledger, beside family consolidated, a pressure that wanted to become a letter and was denied. Lampblack dust gathers in these small decisions the way fog gathers in hollows before dawn. We count the late crossings of T, a curate's habit of finishing his letters after the fact, on slips that mention the Hollow family. We find more late crossings on days their business was handled. Style becomes a biometric. Hesitation becomes a fingerprint. We listen for negative space the same way we listened in Ward C in London. Here, the missing things recur with metronome stubbornness. No guardianship indenture for the eldest boy. No apprenticeship binding his labor to a name. No parish relief receipt with a signature or even an X. No witness lines filled when the sister writes, "I recognize them." Recognition is the one thing that repeats without being allowed to settle into ink. When echoes accumulate, institutions tell themselves the echo is the rule. The refrain mutates accordingly. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. Lines that reveal get forbidden. Folds that return get pinned. Echoes that persist become policy. The parish does not write a statute that says, "Do not draw the lines." It simply behaves as if the statute existed until the behavior feels lawful. That is how systems are born, not with a trumpet but with a repetition. We resist the temptation to supply why too early. We are not at motive yet. We are at pattern. The pattern is a constellation you can see from any page now. Baptism, banns, burial, school, pew, tithe, roll, map, circular, court. Different paper, same choreography. Count the bodies, freeze the names. There is one last echo so small you could miss it. On the inside cover of the parish atlas, where children sometimes practice letters in soft pencil when no one is watching, a row of capital H's marches across the page, then stops. Beside them, a single N begins and dies as a dent. It is the practice hand of someone young, copying what they have seen adults refuse to write. The habit has soaked so deep into the paper that even play obeys it. We close the books for now. The room remains. The fold remains. The haloed pinholes remain. The arithmetic remains immaculate. The names remain withheld. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Echoes that conform get believed. The parish learned to hide a family by making its refusal sound like ordinary weather. We have enough echoes to stop calling it weather. Next, we tilt from pattern to mechanism, from how they did it, to why it served them. Not a haunting. An economy. Not a curse. A policy that discovered it could survive by leaving a surname column blank and calling the blank discretion. The time for mystery is not over, but the time for isolation is. One blank field can be an error. 10 blank fields, across ledgers that never share a room, become a budget. The parish did not stumble into erasing a surname. It discovered a way to survive by erasing it. We tilt now from pattern to mechanism, from what repeated to why it paid. Begin with the simplest truth first. Parishes in these mountains did not live on doctrine alone. They lived on pew rents, subscriptions, county allowances, and the goodwill of men who liked their accounts to look clean. Clean meant balanced numbers, respectable names, and quiet disputes. A blank surname threatens all three unless you teach the paper to make that blank do work. The parish's first tool is renaming. Not the family, never the family, but the problem. The curate's slip says, familia sine nomine because Latin anesthetizes scandal. The schoolmaster writes, alias common, because alias sounds like caution, not confusion. The pew ledger says, family consolidated, because a bundle of 7 in one pew can be sold as thrift rather than erasure. Each phrase is an instrument. Each instrument moves attention away from who to how many. The second tool is freezing. You saw it in London when a hospital learned to write suspension. Here the parish learns to write, do not draw the lines. Freezing is policy without statute. It buys time that no one intends to spend. If you never draw the lines between initials, you never trigger the rules those lines would awaken. Rules about dispensation, about inheritance, about the prohibited degrees a curate would have to record and explain. A dash is cheaper than a scandal. A dash is cheaper than a hearing. The third tool is dispersal. Spread the refusal across places where it can hide. Let a blank sit in baptism. Let weather cancel the bans. Let held by tenancy float on the plat where a surname would fix liability. Let appears not assigned cushion the militia role. No one document carries the whole truth. Each carries one polite absence. Together, they assemble a defense. We wrote what we could. The parish is not lying. It is editing. Now watch incentive linked to grammar. Names create claims. Claims create costs. A surname in the ledger pulls a chain of duties behind it. A right to parcel lines. A right to juror service that cannot be waived away with surname not proven. A right to pew standing that cannot be consolidated without negotiation. Erase the surname and the body becomes countable without becoming entitled. 7 mouths justify 7 loaves and a line in the donor report. 7 souls justify 7 sittings and a line in the pew ledger. But 7 without a name justify no land and no case. The county's money arrives as totals. Households tallied up, souls aggregated, able men counted for militia. The totals look better when they are higher and stable. A nameless family is elastic. If an auditor asks, they can be consolidated into 1 pew, 1 subscription, 1 figure. If a donor asks, they can be evidence of need, 7 served every week. The arithmetic carries praise, the names would carry questions. We return to the 13 loaves for 12 households, because arithmetic betrays habits people pretend are virtues. Extra bread is charity on paper. It is also proof that a blank field is pulling more weight than an inked one. The matron's red cleared is a ritual absolution. It means, do not ask which mouth ate the 13th. It means, do not ask whose surname would have made this surplus visible. When the steward tallies pew rents and the number 7 fits into a single charge, the surplus flows the other way. A discount that looks like benevolence and feels like efficiency. Either way, the blank earns its keep. Mechanism isn't only language, it is timing. The curate stamped his slip 2 days before the ledger entry. That is administrative choreography, refusal first, count second. Once the refusal exists, every subsequent page can inherit it. You saw the late crossing of the T, the way conclusions arrived after facts. That is not style. That is a parish training its hand to land on caution before it lands on naming. Mechanism is also map work. The plat that writes, held by tenancy, where a surname should stand, erases tenure without erasing use. Men still work the bend in the creek. Children still play there. The parish still counts them for bread and for pews. But when a boundary dispute rises, no ink points back to a name. The parish is safe. The family is portable. If a landlord demands a removal, the atlas offers no resistance. Paper that refuses surname converts people into movable arithmetic. Ask what the parish fears, and the answer is not theology first. It is reputation among donors and stability among neighbors. A recorded consanguinity without dispensation would travel. A mixed lineage that violates an unspoken line would spread as gossip. A surname with too many echoes on the same page would draw a finger from a man at the back of the vestry who likes to keep accounts and rules in parallel. The curate chooses to make the ledger weight-bearing and the atlas blurry. The parish survives. Cost lives where policy performs. What does the family pay for the parish's safety? They pay an inheritance first. No surname, no claim. They pay in voice. Surname not proven is a door out of jury duty and a door out of justice both. They pay in sacrament. Bans waived for weather yields a marriage that lives in a room but not in a book. They pay in memory. A child's burial line that reads, Child of M, will not resist the forgetting that follows. Stones can keep names, ledgers keep accounts. The refrain mutates the way all refrains do when they reach accounts. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. Lines that reveal get forbidden. Folds that return get pinned. Blank fields do labor. Hear it in the vestry room. The men are not villains. They are stewards who enjoy neat columns. They like the way the atlas opens when the pins hold. They like the way the donor letter says discretion in a sentence that also says well-known families. They are proud of the way the bread account balances across Lent. They are managing a problem the paper solved for them, how to keep help flowing and trouble still. They do not see the erasure because the erasure is the thing that keeps their ledgers smooth. Mechanism has enforcers and escape valves. The enforcer is the instruction you now know by heart. Do not draw the lines. It lives in margins, in grease pencil on the back of the map, in a whispered warning when a schoolboy starts to write an H too confidently. The escape valve is recognition in a hand that will not count as signature. The sister writes, I recognize them, and that sentence allows a conscience to function while the ledger continues to function too. Built into the parish is a small place where truth can exhale and then be filed in a drawer that does not change totals. Mechanism reaches forward. Children who grow up with ghost strokes teach their own hands to hesitate. The inside cover of the atlas carries their practice, HHH, and a dent where the N began and died. That is how policy becomes culture, not by debate, but by muscle memory. A blank field trains a body to pause where a line would attach a person to obligations the parish has chosen not to carry. If you want a single sentence to carry the system's thesis, it is this: classification protects the classifier. The parish draws boxes it can defend and leaves blank those it cannot. A surname is a box that leaks responsibility. A blank is a plug. Fill the pew. Fill the tithe line. Fill the militia total. Leave the name to float. Structural benefits compound. A nameless family cannot trigger dispensation fees the parish would prefer not to request or explain. It cannot contest a boundary when the creek shifts and a neighbor's fence creeps. It cannot bind a wealthy man to godparent duty he would rather perform at a distance. It cannot force the curate to choose between doctrine and donors. Erasure offers a painless alignment of interests. Everyone wins on paper. The family wins bread. The parish wins peace. The donors win a paragraph about stability. The only loss is carried by the line where a surname should be. We do not have to ascribe malice when habit will do. The curate's blade that scratched out illicit and replaced it with kin was not mercy for the family. It was self-preservation for the book. The steward's family consolidated was not deception. It was theology translated into logistics. Many become one in the pew the way many become one in the account. The schoolmaster's alias common is not mockery. It is convenience worn as a rule. Procedure puts a gloss on power. The fold memory test taught you that paper returns where pressure trained it to return. The parish trained its paper to return to the same absence. You can smooth it with warmth. You can weight it with ledgers. It rises again. The crease is not a mistake. It is a hinge that lets the book open smoothly in public without spilling what it knows in private. Listen carefully to the last, quietest mechanism. Preemption. The curate's early stamp moves refusal upstream of counting. From that point on, every form downstream can cite a reality it did not create but can honor. We recorded what was already true. This is the calm tone you hear in donor appendices and audits and circulars. Nothing was decided here. Everything arrived as given. It is the tone of men who prefer their ethics already solved by earlier hands. We keep the ritual honesty. This is not a ghost story. It is an economy sustained by blanks. It is a policy that learned to live as weather. It is a parish that found it could stay whole by keeping one family unwhole on paper. The ledger remains satisfied. Bread counts balance. Pew rents reconcile. The militia rolls smiles at its even tens. The page in the atlas, folded where the family should be, does not reconcile at all. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. And the nameless, counted, consolidated, convenient, keep everything else from moving. We will close on residue next. Not as verdict, but as artifact. A dent, a fold, a pinhole with a red-brown halo. A last line spoken in a room that prefers totals to names. When we say closure, we do not mean that the book will shut. We mean that we will place the thing it refuses to forget on the table and let it keep disagreeing with the count. We return to the desk because endings belong to surfaces, not speeches. The parish office waits the way rooms wait when the day is over and the accounts agree with themselves. The gas jet is down to a thumb of light. The ledger is ajar by a finger's width, as if it fell asleep mid-sentence. The atlas lies where we left it, a green cloth rectangle with the stubborn fold inside, humming the memory of pressure. We do not summon anyone. We let the paper speak. Start with what refuses to vanish. A dent in the surname column on folio 47. The ghost stroke is small enough to miss, shallow enough to live under a fingertip without protest, but it has outlived the hand that pressed it and the witness who watched. Lampblack rides the ridge. The unlettered beginning of a name warms under light, darkens, then sits there like an opening that will not close. The ink can age. The dent will not. Next, the pinholes. Brass should leave green in paper the way a creek leaves stain on stone. At the hollow fold, the halos are wrong, red-brown, edge-dark, stubborn. We tried control pins. We tried clean paper. The parish microscope has nothing to do with hauntings. It only magnifies obedience and finds it wanting. Pins carry iron, the technician wrote, precise as a weather report. The parish would prefer weather. The page gives residue. Now, the fold itself. You can smooth a crease with patience and warmth. You can lay a book under weight and tell yourself you have corrected it. Some folds have learned to return. This one finds its hinge even in sleep. The moment you lift the cover, the page exhales the habit back into the room. Names repeat across the crease, first as ink, then as shadow, then as something the eye knows without permission. If the atlas were a person, it would be that relative who can hold a smile at the table, and then the second the door is shut, let the muscles drop back where they live. The parish has trained its book to smile. The book has trained itself to remember. We place the curate's slip beside the ledger, onion skin against rag, and hear the quiet argument continue. He pressed so hard on not that the reverse swells. Do not draw the lines. The instruction has lasted longer than his authority. The knife scar over the word he would not let stand, illicit, still flashes under raking light like an apology he filed as policy. The stamp he struck 2 days early, received before the ledger would count, refusal upstream of number, is a small choreography anyone could miss in a hurry. We don't hurry. If the parish wanted speed, it would not have written so many ways to pause. Bring the photograph, the one that pretends time cannot teach it anything. Control prints fog. The hollow family cabinet card darkens and then returns to baseline as if breathless but obedient to itself. Image unchanged. The technician's sentence is as good as doctrine. We do not argue with it. We place it on the table where light can find its surface and fail to move it. All of this would be quaint if it did not collect into a shape. The shape is not a ghost. It is a habit that learned to wear discretion as a virtue. The parish discovered it could convert a family into arithmetic without inheriting their claims. Blank fields do labor. The ledgers agree with themselves. The vestry sleeps. The fold refuses. We inventory the negative space one last time, not because we need to be convinced, but because residue speaks clearest when you stop chasing verdicts. No surname on folio 47, no signature in the witness line, no parcel number on the plat where the creek bends, no banns published, only weather carrying the blame, no guardianship for the eldest, no apprenticeship indenture to attach him to a name he could work under, no godparent written, only initials that behave like fig leaves, no errata slip, no red correction mark, no confession, only count. The Sister RS pencil sentence across the bottom edge, the one men will call unprofessional if they ever bother to notice, remains the only unpurchased truth in the room. I recognize them. It is not a signature. It will never rise to the dignity of proof. It is a hand reaching across paper because the book refused to. It counts for nothing in accounts. It counts for everything when the door is closed and the ledger's hum stops. Listen to the refrain one last time as it arranges itself into the shape it wanted all along. Numbers that move get questioned. Numbers that hold get paid. Names that move get erased. Names that hold get denied. Lines that reveal get forbidden. Folds that return get pinned. Blank fields do labor. Classification protects the classifier. The parish will never write that on a placard. It doesn't have to. It has written it everywhere else. We could end where donors like endings, on totals. 12 households, 13 loaves, cleared. 7 sittings, consolidated, paid. Able men for muster, rounded to an even 10 with one name made heir at the bottom of the roll. But totals are the music that lulled the parish to sleep. We end on the sound paper makes when it disagrees. The faint rasp of lampblack over a dent. The small scratch where a blade forgot to be gentle with the word it feared. The whisper of a fold returning after weight is lifted. The room is full of tiny noises that do not want applause. You want to ask what happened to them. You want to ask whether the family kept living under initials, whether the eldest boy took a name on a road far from the ridge, whether the parish ever changed its mind. The archive is not a fortune teller. It is a table. It puts artifacts where hands can reach them and refuses to lie for comfort. The book can show you the week a child was buried and the cost of the grave. It can show you a seat paid and faces turned forward under a roof that leaks in March. It cannot show you a signature that was never permitted to arrive. We do not offer absolution, because absolution is a function, and functions belong to systems, and the system has already performed enough of itself. We offer recognition. The sister did. We repeat her sentence because repetition is how cultures are built, and sometimes how they are remedied. I recognize them. The atlas hears it. The fold lifts and falls as if wind found the page. You can call that coincidence. We prefer to call it the physical fact that paper is a machine for remembering pressure. If you are listening now, like the file and subscribe to the archive. Tell me your country and the time. Put yourself on a ledger that cannot sell your name as weather. Every count is a choice. Every choice leaves a mark. This isn't a ghost story. It's a parish that learned to stay whole by keeping a family unwhole on paper. It's a census that proved it could be perfect without telling the truth. It's a fold that returns. It's a pinhole that carries iron where brass should sleep. It's a surname that began and died as a dent large enough to hold a century. We shut the ledger, not to end it, but to see if it remembers how to resist closure. The cover settles with the soft thud of a promise made to itself. The atlas follows, green cloth in the half-light. When the room is empty again, the crease relaxes into its old angle, alive without witness. The desk groove shines where wrists taught it the shape of work. Out on the ridge, the wind draws a line between pines that nobody has to sign. The book shuts. The crease does not.